violence.
Well, to go through this is Peter Vincent, a former top official at the Department of Homeland Security. Thanks very much for coming on the programme.
Thank you, Lewis.
So let's get things clear to start with the legal side of this. Is there a legal right for the Trump administration to send in these federal officers?
There are a number of legal authorities. The Department of Homeland Security and its component law enforcement agencies have, in fact, extraordinarily broad legal authorities to enforce violations of federal law. And in specific to Portland, there is a provision, a federal law that provides for, and in fact obligates the federal government to protect federal facilities and visitors to those facilities. And that, coupled with the recent executive order, is what we've seen happening in Portland.
I see. So there is a legal basis for it. How appropriately do you think it's being used right now?
There is certainly a legal basis for the arrests that you've seen in or very near federal facilities like the federal courthouse in Portland. But those actual tactics have left me dismayed, disappointed, and disheartened. Just because a law enforcement entity has legal authority to investigate and to prosecute crimes, that doesn't mean that it should in all cases. And as we've seen before the White House in Lafayette Square, where federal authorities actually tear gassed innocent, peaceful protesters exercising their constitutional rights to assembly and to free speech, and in Portland, the tactics have been authoritarian, and they have done nothing other than inflame an already volatile and emotional situation.
So part of your argument would be that it simply hasn't been effective.
It has not been effective. In fact, Lewis, I would argue that it's actually made things far worse, both in Washington, D.C., in front of the White House some weeks ago, and more recently in Portland. The local officials, as you have indicated, have very strongly condemned the actions of the Department of Homeland Security and its various agents and officers, and have indicated they don't need, nor do they want, the assistance of federal authorities. Local authorities are always best positioned, knowing their communities, to deal with these sorts of things, to work together to make sure that individuals are able to peacefully protest and to exercise their constitutionally protected rights while protecting individuals from that very small group of knuckleheads and individuals that commit violence and use these peaceful protests as a pretext to engage in destruction or defacing of federal property.
Yeah. And just briefly, I'm afraid we're almost out of time, but the critics of some of these moves is that this is a politicization of what's going on here. Where do you stand on that?
President Trump has politicized and militarized and weaponized, both figuratively and literally, the actions of my former agency, the Department of Homeland Security. This is all political shenanigans and theater on his part to prop up his failing political campaign and to divert attention to his failed coronavirus pandemic response.
Okay, Peter, great to talk to you. Thanks very much for coming on the programme. Peter Vincent.